Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, where today, guys, we've got some updates for you. Josh Donaldson may be looking to return to Toronto. Is that something we actually want here for the Toronto Blue Jays? And as well, we've got some updates as well from Ross Atkins saying that he's still looking to make some big moves, and could be some big moves on the pitching side of things that we were not expecting.
Yeah.
We're going to get into all of that, guys, and more. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playalog, and I mean, it's later on in the video, but I'll shout it out right now. I tweeted something out today, and it's just like where are we in the offseason, right? Pull it up, man. Where the hell are we in the offseason right now? Because in the last 24 hours, everybody, the Blue Jays have reportedly become open to trading Alec Manoa, right? So that's one thing that's already just a major, just like, what the fuck? You know, like, that's a thing right there. And now Josh Donaldson is showing interest in coming back to the team, right? Like, are we trying to go back to 2015, to the good old days? You know, like, literally Ross Atkins is like, listen, we got a winning formula back then. That's what works. Let's just go all the way back.
Well, the one good thing is that it was Josh just saying it. There was no, like, Ross coming out and saying it. So, you know, and respect, though. I mean, Josh's wife is Canadian, right? He always visits Toronto. So, like, for him saying that, it's like, yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I've heard that he is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan.
Yes, he is.
As well. He does go to Maple Leafs games, so that could be a thing.
Yep,
I mean, I know we're going to talk about it later, and we can get into it a little bit. Actually, fuck it. Let's talk about it right now.
Yeah.
Josh Donaldson. I'll say right now, man, his bat is not where it was in 2015 and 2016. And I think that there's a lot of people out there watching right now that know that, I mean, like, he's not going to be the guy. He's not necessarily going to be the bringer of rain, you know? He might be the bringer of dew. Or, you know, like,
little droplets in the morning.
Little tiny droplets,
Sometimes you notice it. Like, oh, what is that? Oh,
it's like, oh, you know, like, I should have worn my boots today or something like that, right? I think he hit for like a 150 batting average last year. I mean, the guy struck out more times than he got hit, so it's very clear that, like, he's not going to be bringing the smoke with the baseball bat, but as a personality, what do you think about Josh Donaldson as a personality on the Toronto Blue Jays?
Listen. When he was on the Toronto Blue Jays and he hit high 800 OPS, 1 MVP, 900 OPS, he was very loud. We all knew that. And his personality, I'm like, I love this guy. Because you also had people who were loud on the team, like Bautista, right? You just love that, like, atmosphere, that energy that all those guys had, those veteran players. So I loved it. And then he goes out of the Toronto Blue Jays, he goes around the league, and then he starts to perform bad, and his personality stays, and people go, oh, who's this guy? This guy's people called him out being like, oh, this guy's a prick, this guy's an asshole, and maybe so. But, you know, as a Blue Jay fan, if he comes back to Toronto Blue Jay, whether or not he hits for an 800 OPS or a 600 OPS, you're going to love him because it's going to remind you of 2015, you know what I mean? And maybe he does bring some sort of clubhouse energy because it is Toronto. It's the place where he had the best time in his career, on the field, off the field. So maybe you think, like, hey, maybe this could be a good momentum guy in the clubhouse. You never know.
Listen, I mean, you know, prick is certainly one way to say it, and I do think that there could be some weight to that, but maybe the Toronto Blue Jays, we need to embrace that a little bit more. You know, I think I was talking about this on a recent podcast where we were discussing the difference between John Gibbons and John Schneider. And I mean, John Schneider's a little baby boy. He's a little wham baby, and he doesn't, you know, there's not a whole lot coming out of there. John Gibbons has that dog in him, you know. He had that dog in him. Same as Josh Donaldson, same as Jose Bautista, right? And I feel like injecting a little bit of that dog mentality into the clubhouse might be the next step for these boys. You know, we're not rookies anymore. This isn't the first season for them. They're almost at their contract years. It's time to show the league that we are a dog mentality team, and you can't just walk into the Rogers Center and expect to potentially walk away with 2 or 3 wins.
Right. Okay, so 2 things for you. Do you think that Josh Donaldson, if he were to come over to Toronto Blue Jays, would he bring that dog? Would that all of a sudden make everyone a dog? And 2, do you think that's an actual possibility that Josh Donaldson comes on and plays like a full year with the Jays, or even half a year because, you know, he's got some injury history? Do you think he's got the job coming in? Like, what do you expect if he was to come on the Jays?
To answer the first part of that question, I think, that he would bring some type of energy because I do believe that everybody in this team, even though they know what he's been doing recently, there's also got to be a respect for what you did do in Toronto, you know, like for what you were capable of accomplishing with the Toronto Blue Jays. And I think that everybody's going to look up to him and say, hey, none of us have MVPs. We don't. None of us have won an MVP. You've won an MVP. You've gone farther with this team than we have ever done. I mean, you at least won a freaking playoff game with the Toronto Blue Jays. We have none of us have done that. You know what I mean? So I think that energy side of things, there would be a respect, a mutual kind of respect, being like, you know what, we understand you, and it's like we respect you for what you've done. Whether or not he would play every single day. Well, actually, I don't think he would play every single day.
Yeah.
I think if you bring in Josh Donaldson, it truly is a clubhouse personality type of move, just to say, just a little bit of a nod of the cap and being like, hey, we want a little bit of what your veteran presence brings to the team. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you were to bring him back, and I don't even know if Josh would take this because, you know, Josh is coming off a 4-year, $80 million deal. You know what I mean? And it's like, to go from that, and then for what I was going to say, I'd bring him back on a minor league contract. Josh Donaldson's not playing in AAA Buffalo. Like, that's the last thing he's going to do. He's going to want a 1 year, I get a chance to play one more time. And I'll be frank, like, to bring him back and have that mentality in the clubhouse would be great, but I don't know if it's worth it necessarily because I'd almost rather just see what the young guys could do at that point. You know what I mean? The split of Espinal, Barger, or Elvis Martinez over there at third base, I'd almost rather see that experiment than to have Josh Donaldson lock it up for a while. Because if you bring him back on like a major league contract, you feel obligated to play him. Yeah, you would cut him, you can cut your loss a little bit, but I don't know. That's a conversation you have to have with him and his agent. Like, if he's not getting any interest, which I don't think he will this offseason, like, maybe that's something that he'd be open to. Like, hey, if I do suck, like, no hard feelings. Like, put me on the bench, or like maybe send me to AAA, but actually don't have me play. You know, clearly they can do that now with Alec Manoa, that case. Yeah. So do whatever it takes, right? I'm open to it, but I don't see if you were just to like slot him in on like a major league contract 1 year, like. I just, I wouldn't want it. I'd rather have the young guys.
I do hear what you're saying there, man. And I mean, to the point of whether or not he would take or would not take a deal like this, I mean, I think what's working in Toronto's favor is the fact that he did win an MVP with this team, you know? And maybe he's looking at his entire career and saying, hey, I had the best years of my entire career with Toronto. Is this the team that I want to hang my jersey up with? Because he has been around the league. You know, he's been everywhere, right? So maybe that's one of those reasons where he could say to himself or convince himself, being like, I can go back to Toronto, take a little bit less money because there's not a whole lot of interest going on, and maybe I'll hang up the cleats in the 6.
I think that makes sense. Now, I'm curious to see what you guys all think in the chat, right? I can't even read the comments right now, but I can imagine some of you guys are like, nah, screw this guy, or hell yeah, bring him back.
Honestly, it looks like to me, and I'll tell you, I can read the comments. A lot of people are saying, we love Josh Donaldson, we love the bringer of rain, bring him back. And I mean, I think if the mentality is, guys, if the mentality is you bring him in for literally next to nothing monetarily speaking, you cut him whenever you want to cut him, and potentially he could help some of, if he's playing third base or wherever he's playing, right, he could help some of those younger guys walk into the role. I mean, maybe that's a W.
Cool.
Maybe that's a W.
You know, if he splits time at third base, because we were kind of talking about a Band-Aid solution. You bring in Matt Chapman, he's your locked-in guy. Screw bringing up the young guys. Jimmer Candelario, he's going to be locked in for at least a year. Maybe he splits time. Who knows? Maybe he does DH. You never know. But then, with Josh Donaldson, like, that is the most rippable Band-Aid off you could possibly find.
I'll tell you this right now, man, and you guys can let me know in the comments what you think about this. I would take Josh Donaldson on a 1-year deal over Matt Chapman for $150 million, 10 times out of 10, lock it in.
Easy.
Young guys can come up, take over after Josh Donaldson, will inevitably be striking out more than he does anything else because that's where he's at in his career. But at least you got somebody there just to say, like, we got somebody here, rather than have Matt Chapman lock that thing up for who knows how long.
Hey, you want to see history repeat itself? Look what happened to Donaldson after he signed a 4-year deal after the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah, he doesn't have the glove of Matt Chapman, but he had quite an incredible bat that he was leaving with. And what happened at the end of that contract? His bat was crap. Look at Matt Chapman's bat. Okay, yeah, great defense, but you're gonna take a 500 OPS with great defense?
Well, I was talking about this on the weekend, and if you guys watched the video that I posted out on Saturday, like, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I was effectively talking about the Matt Chapman and the deal because the Toronto Blue Jays right now, they are showing immense interest right now in potentially bringing him back. This is after, by the way, he rejected the qualifying offer, after he rejected an offer over $100 million by the Toronto Blue Jays, which I think is just blasphemous to begin with, but he rejected that. He is looking for $150 to even upwards of $175 million. That's what he wants right now. That's what the market is saying. I came out and I said, there's absolutely no way in hell. I do not want anything to do with that. What are your thoughts on Matt Chapman potentially coming back for $150, $170 million for God knows how long?
There's way too many contracts on the books of guys, and we were talking about this before the podcast, over 30 years. You know, you got Kevin Gausman, granted elite, Chris Bassett, you've got Jose Barrios, you've got George Springer, right? Like, and hey, you want to sign Bo Bichette, or you want to sign Vladdy, or you want to go out this offseason, make a big splash and sign a Bellinger, or, you know, Yamamoto or Ohtani, right? Yeah. If you want to have that opportunity, like signing Matt Chapman just takes one of those guys away from you, and I already know that contract's not going to age well. No. The glove's going to be great. The glove is going to be great. Cool. Great. What has that done on the offense side of things? He was one of the worst guys with runners in scoring position. We want to talk about fixing that problem. That's how you fix that problem. Don't bring back Matt Chapman.
Dude, I think this comparison is the best way for me to put it, and I broke this down as well. But George Springer gets paid $150 million by the Toronto Blue Jays right now. That's something that happens. That's something that they locked in and they signed. In the 2 years prior to signing his contract, and the 2 years leading up to that contract, he roughly an OPS, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 950, 952. Really, it was stupid good, really impressive, right? That's what he had.
Yeah.
That was the 2 years leading up to it. He is the same age that Matt Chapman is going to be, or is right now when he was going to be signing his contract. Yep. And in the 2 years with the Toronto Blue Jays, he has an OPS of roughly 750. 200 points less, right? So then you're asking yourself, well, why is this guy asking for $150 million, the same amount that this other guy just got paid for doing that much more? And is it the glove?
It's literally the glove.
Because I'll also point out that George Springer is not a slouch defensively. No. He's really good.
Hey, George, I don't think he's got a gold glove. I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
He does.
Right, but it's that crazy. Like, yeah, glove, it can get you some WAR. Right? It can save you some runs. Absolutely no doubting in that. And there's probably hidden stuff that we're not, advanced metrics that we're not seeing that Matt Chapman is contributing to the pitching side of things.
Right.
Like maybe like he lowers everyone's ERA by like 0.12. You know, we don't know that, right?
And also, I'm sorry to cut you off, but also, too, this is no slander on Matt Chapman as a human being. I'm sure he's a phenomenal guy, and I'm sure in the clubhouse as well, he is very good. And that's something that we don't have access to. We don't know what the conversations are with the other guys or whatever. Just want to put that out there and say, like, I know no slander to Matt Chapman as a human being. He is probably pretty cool in the clubhouse, too.
Right, for sure. You know, but going back to the thing is, what's the problem, right? Like, what's the problem? The offense. Why are we did the whole defense thing. It worked out great. We won Team Gold Glove. Great job. What did that do? We still got swept in the playoffs.
Literally.
So let's focus on the solution, which is bring back offense. Okay, we have already a good staff. We're open, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. We're open to adding some more pitching staff.
Yeah.
Great. Let's keep adding, and then let's add some bats and get those runners in from second and third. That's it.
Could not agree more on that one, guys. So those are our 2 cents on Matt Chapman. Mariana coming in here and saying, everyone like the stream. Shout out to Mariana. You're literally 158 people in here right now. We've got 20 likes, guys. If you haven't already done so, please like up the stream, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as well. Let's give a quick shout out right now to one of the sponsors of this video.
Time for a quick covered bridge potato chips, made with ingredients from the St. John River Valley and cooked carefully in a local factory. They've got tons of great flavors like smoke and barbecue, sea salt, and sour cream and onion. Get a taste of this delicious flavor cooked the old-fashioned way. Now, back to the content.
Shout out to Covered Bridge. They're absolutely phenomenal. And shout out to Nuzzy Futz right here saying, I'd poop if we got Ohtani. Listen, I don't want to get graphic right now, everybody. I don't want to get graphic. But there is no crevice, there is no space of this apartment that would be safe if we got it. That's, you know what I mean? Like, their
fill in the blank.
There's literally, the orifices of my body, there is no stopping them at that point, man. I haven't actually had an opportunity to speak on it yet. I think you talked about it while I was away, guys. I was on vacation, if you didn't know. But the whole Ohtani stuff coming out, we're potentially in the race now. They're looking a little bit more serious, That's fucking wild.
That is wild, dude. Like, it's because, like, you have all the analysts throwing out and I kind of said this in my video, you have all the analysts throwing out, like, obviously of the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and it was the Dodgers, Red Sox, and there's another team.
Cubs?
Rangers.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Those are like the top 3, but those are obvious top 3s. Like
Right.
Boston said they want to buy again. They got a new management. They're going to be big splash. Everyone loves the Boston Red Sox. And then all those other guys, right? That they're pretty obvious, right? Just won a World Series with Dodgers were amazing. And then like you had like middle tier teams, like maybe the Cubs could do it. Maybe the Giants could do it. And then the Toronto Blue Jays were in their own tier, which was built because of all the noise that everyone's been hearing. So for me, I said, well, I feel like that's a better chance than the Cubs and the Giants because we're actually making noise, and because Ohtani's agent and like team around him are trying to keep things quiet, but this is what's coming out. This is what's coming out about the Blue Jays, but they're trying to hush, but that must mean a lot of noise going behind the scenes.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, we're going to get into it later in this video,
Right.
but the fact of the matter is the Toronto Blue Jays people keep saying they want to do a big thing. They want to do a big thing. There is no bigger thing than that. We're going to talk about that later, but yeah, just the fact that we are actually getting more seriously linked to Ohtani, like I never thought that we were going to get this seriously talked about. I knew that there'd be some stuff.
I thought it was going to be a joke, kind of thing. Oh,
Literally.
are we going to get him? No, bro, we're actually here, man.
We're in the mix right now. I'll tell you this, guys. If you made it to this point of the video, comment down below a lock emoji down below, because I'm locking it in. I was thinking about this the other day. If Ohtani signs to the Toronto Blue Jays, I quit my day job the next day.
Oh, yeah.
I promise you right now, I lock it in, guys. Comment the lock down below if you made it to this point. If he signs, I quit my day job the next day.
Oh my god.
That's how much I think he changes the game for the Blue Jays.
I think, and I think what to comment off of Nick, like that changes all of ours.
Literally.
Like our channel, like we're about to get like a 10,000 new subscribers just flooding in because it's Japan. You have a whole country coming in. Like that's insane.
And that's us, you could argue secondhand, third-hand recipient of that. The Toronto Blue Jays, and this is the business side of thing for Shohei Otani, right? The business side of thing, the amount of monetary value and just the amount of, I want to say, world clout. If you want to coin that term, right? World clout. It really does put your team on the map as being like a serious squad that we are going to be looking at for a while.
Wow. Insane, guys. Let's get it going. That wasn't the topic of our next thing, but when you bring up Ohtani, you gotta go on. You gotta dream
I'm
gonna
live in dreamland as long as I can until there is ink with another team's name associated with Ohtani. We're gonna have to talk about it, man.
Right.
This is the closest that we may get.
I hear you. Well, if we do sign Ohtani, at least for 2024, he won't be pitching, but in 2025, he will definitely be in that rotation. And a guy that possibly might be out of the job if we bring over Ohtani and could be a little bit of trade bait is Alec Manoa.
Yeah,
and that's the next thing we're talking about here, folks, which is blasphemous. We have, and this isn't the only place that's coming out talking about this, Talking Baseball saying the Blue Jays are open to moving Alec Manoa per Ken Rosenthal. This rumbling has happened. It's confusing because you had just a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, Ross Atkins coming out and talking about how his plans is that he's going to be pitching in the rotation. Yeah. He's going to be up for that 5th spot. And we're like, okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe we're not in on a starting pitcher. And then ever since then, it's been almost the opposite. And now apparently the Blue Jays are open for a trade. What do you make of this? Because Alec Manoa is not at a really good trade spot right now. He's kind of at the lowest he's ever been, bro.
I'll come out first off with this. The second that the Toronto Blue Jays lost in the postseason, and then there was all of those press conferences and everything like that from the management, everybody was getting on Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro on the management and everything like that, right? We were on them. They were on the hot seat. Yeah. And that's kind of cooled off recently. Yeah. But stuff like this, when stuff like this comes up and we start hearing multiple different accounts of different ongoings, he's coming out and saying one thing, a whole other group of people are saying this completely other thing. I just want to remind everybody, Ross Atkins isn't always to be trusted. Not every single thing that he comes out and says, we can take at face value. And I think right here, when the fact that, literally 4 days prior, he's coming out and saying, well, Alec Manoa is going to be part of our big plans. And then you got a bunch of rival executives coming out and saying, well, actually, they're interested in potentially trading him. That just, to me, it's automatically like, okay, there's some red flags going on here with what our management is saying.
The only way I can really make sense of this is straight up the Blue Jays are going, hey, here's this juicy carrot right here. Very low value right now, which everyone knows literally had a horrible year, but coming off of a Cy Young 3 year, and he's still got 4 more years left on his contract. This could be a juicy buy low candidate right here that a lot of teams would buy. A ton of teams would buy in on Alec Manoa. So I think for me, the trade markets are starting to go. You've seen a couple trades here and there. I think that was them saying, hey, what can I get? It's like in fantasy when you don't really intend on trading a guy, and then you put him out there. Who's going to give me the ridiculous offer?
You're casting the line right now.
Exactly. That's what I make sense of it. I don't think they're actually going to trade him. I think it's probably little to 0% chance that they're actually going to do it unless someone comes out and gives you exactly what his trade was when he won Cy Young 3 and maybe more.
The only thing that I will go to just to push against that, and I think this is the one argument that you could say that maybe they are actually fully serious about this, is, and this is all behind closed doors, might I add, we're not familiar, but if the relationship is truly that fractured to the point where they're starting to realize right now, we just can't work with this guy. You know, we're at it like where we wanted to make it happen. But, you know, in the conversations that we're having right now, behind closed doors, we're realizing to ourselves we can't work with this guy anymore. Clearly, like he's on a different level right now, and you know we don't want to meet him there.
Right.
That would be the only way that I could see them actually going down this road.
Right. If you're kind of looking past Ross's comments, which I mean at this point are kind of fraudulent, right? Based on what was coming out right now, because he's also made another comment saying like, well, we're working together with Alec. He doesn't want to get traded. We're going to work together. We're looking forward to seeing him pitch next year.
Well, here's what I'll say though. If he's coming out and saying that, right? And that's what you should say as a manager. You come out and you say all these things, but we're working together. We're trying to get our guy good. But then they're doing it. They're behind the scenes. They're doing it, and they're like, "Damn, like this is, we're having a hard time. Staying on the same page here.
Yeah.
Maybe we can't make this work.
Right.
Maybe that's what's going on in the offseason. This is full speculation.
I want to dive down that more. Like, I'm curious what that conversation would even entail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because right now, what's the issue? I mean, the season's over. There's no more complaining about playing time and being sent down or called up. Ross has said you're going to be up for a starting job next year. It's up to you now. Get ready, get in shape, and let's go get it. You know what I mean? Like, what would be the issue? Maybe it's a training regimen. I don't know. Like, what could it be at this point?
I think it would it would be a personality thing, right? Like, if Manoa is still bent about what transpired, and he's kind of holding that against that. There's some resentment going on there. That could be a problem, right? You never know what the working relationships are. Maybe it is just a bad working relationship, and we realize based on what transpired here, he doesn't trust the management. They don't trust him anymore. You know, if that's fractured, if the trust is fractured, you're gonna have a hard time working that way back. I hope that that's not the case. I hope that what you said about them kind of dangling the fruit a little bit, dangling the carrot, putting out the fishing line, just seeing what's out there is more as to where this is at right now, because I still am not as bought in, but still bought in on Alec Manoa coming back and being a guy. We are only one season removed from him being really good at baseball, and if we would have given up on Jose Barrios, for instance, we might never even made playoffs this past year, right? Because that was the conversation a season prior, was that, Barrios is crap, and Kikuchi was crap, right? Both of those guys bounced back. Manoa is much younger than them and has shown much more promise than both of them as well. So I do think he's got all the capabilities in the world to come back and be good at baseball. It's just, where is your attitude at right now?
Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, just kind of sum it up and just with the stats, like, dude still has a 3.32 ERA career.
And that's after putting up a god-awful season last year.
And it was short, right? Granted, it was a really short, only 19 games. Probably very short innings, too. But still, the big ERA, 25 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you can't forget what he did being compared to, like, Doc, Roy Halladay coming up like that. That's special, right? Like, so you want to see if there's anything left in there in the tank, and I'm predicting like everything's gonna be fine. He's gonna be in spring training with the Jays, in good shape.
Yo, you know who had a really bad season, like a season prior?
Who?
Josh Hader. Look at how how good he is right now.
Dude, pitching is like that all the time. Blake Snell
has had some bats. He just won Cy Young. You know what I mean?
All the time.
It can happen. There can be up and downs in people's career. I mean, that was a down, but I do imagine that there will be a leveling out process with Alec Manoa.
Look at Kevin Gausman. He got DFA'd.
Totally.
He bounced around.
Totally.
Became a Cy Young. Or Cy Young candidate caliber. You know what I mean? Like, that pitching is so volatile. The only way you are like a rock solid Hall of Famer is if you're like the Verlanders of the world, and like you just put up every single year.
Yeah, and that is
like,
very, very tough to do.
Like, yeah, and like that's like out of like the last 10 years, like you're locked in Hall of Fame. Out of all the pitchers that ever emerged, you have not had a bad season, and it's like, okay, like that's very hard to do.
Yeah,
you know?
and I'll come on record and say this. I don't think the Toronto Blue Jays should trade him because the value is not where it needs to be right now. I don't imagine that they are going to get the Cy Young 3 type of return.
No.
So there really isn't any reason to go out and to move on from this guy.
I agree, man. All right, last thing we gotta talk about here right before we do that, let's get another shout out from the sponsor of today's video.
Whoa! Time for your daily Betway breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on Betway. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content. Shout out to Betway for being phenomenal, everybody. They are where it's at. 201 people watching. If you haven't already done so, please smash that like button, everybody. Let's see if we can bump this thing up to 69 likes before we're all through. Let's move on and talk about what Ben Nicholson-Smith tweeted out today. This has got some people wondering, people thinking about the possibilities, the potential for these Toronto Blue Jays doing something big, getting a big name. He said that they are looking, showing real interest in some of the big names, including top free agent pitchers per sources. And that kind of, it cycles into the rumors that we were just talking about with Alec Manoa, because if they did get a big-time pitcher, now you're looking at wondering where the hole is there. So we could get into that a little bit.
That's right.
But the Blue Jays' top priority is still, Blue Jays' bats still Jays' priority, but they're keeping the possibilities open, active in the trade market too. What are your thoughts on all of that, man? Because there's a lot to digest right there. Basically, he's just saying, hey, listen, we're going to have a big fucking free agency here.
Yeah, well, listen, my thoughts are you could have a big free agency. I think he actually says it right at the end here. It doesn't mean they'll land a star, but at least it's on the table. You could be landing you could land Ohtani, you could land Bellinger, you could land Yamamoto, or you could land Jeimer Candelario and, Mike Yastrzemski. I made a video on him. You could land the garbage, and that's what it is. They're casting a big net, and it just goes to show, like, that's exactly what it is. But the thing I pull out of that, and which confirms what we thought about a few weeks ago, which was that they're open to getting starting pitching, and they're still open to getting starting pitching, including Yamamoto, which actually Ben Nicholson-Smith made a tweet about, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, talking about Yamamoto. And Yamamoto, he's now a free agent. The window is now open. It opens up, I think it's going to open up today.
Yeah, it's today,
It's
man.
right now.
It's today.
And then the signing club must, blah, 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 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 4th. So you have until now, until the new year.
Yeah.
That's
about a month
and a couple weeks, right? So you're going to see this guy go off the board. He is the top, a lot of people are saying, the top free agent. And I think our name's going to be in the mix. We've already talked about it. I wouldn't be shocked if our name is in the mix. And that opens up, like you said, a whole other bunch of questions. Well, if we're in on Yamamoto, well, what does that mean for a rotation? We already have, Manoa in there. Is a Manoa possibility trade actually more likely now?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course it is.
Of course.
Of course it is, right? If you go out and you sign a guy like this, then, any of the pitchers not named Gosman and Bassett, you could make an argument for it, right? This is the one guy that I think I'd be okay with, really prioritizing the pitching in the offseason,
right?
Because I think he is that special, and because, what he's been capable of doing in the Japanese league for so many years. I think 8 seasons up until this point.
And he's 25.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like we're talking about Manoa and what he's been capable of doing, over here, but when he's 25. This is that, but the Japanese version, and arguably better than that, So I would be so okay if the Toronto Blue Jays wanted to throw all the money at him. But that's the one exception for me, because I don't really want them to be going and just prioritizing the pitching this offseason.
Yeah.
I don't want the same storyline to go down as we saw this past year, where the pitching is phenomenal, but we're losing games 1-0, 2-1.
Right, exactly.
He can come out and he can pitch gems every time, but if we're not going to score any runs, that's not going to help us, So he is absolutely on the radar for me, and apparently the Toronto Blue Jays as well. But I still want bats to be the number one thing.
So that kind of sparks a question in my mind. do you think the Blue Jays have a budget ready? Well, okay, if we land a Yamamoto, maybe even a Blake Snell, we land one of the top pitchers in this free agency, right? Oh crap! Well, if he's just there for us, you got to take him. Do you think there's a budget option for like, okay, well, we obviously recognize that can't be our big move. Our big move still needs to be with the bat, like a Bellinger. Is there an option where we just go all out, we pull a Mets, and we start signing all the top guys? Is that in the realm?
I don't know if we would pull a Mets, but I think that you'd see a different change of mentality, and I think that is where maybe the Manoa trade comes into play. Right. You know, now it's okay. Well, we got this guy. We got new Manoa. We basically have new Manoa now.
Yeah.
So we'll take old Manoa and we'll flip him for a third baseman or whatever it is. Like that. That's the play. And I think because he is so tantalizing, the possibility of having him on your team for however long, it could be a long time.
7 years.
He wants a long contract, that's really tantalizing. So then, you kind of make do with what you have, and it's like, are we going to trade Kikuchi? Are we going to trade Manoa? Who's gonna make space for him and add to the hitting side of things? I think that's kind of the change of mentality that happens.
Yeah, and the mentality is changing. The budget is changing. You could see a Blue Jays team spend probably top 3. That's the maximum potential, right? Like, you have the Mets still spending a lot, but you can see the Blue Jays enter in that top echelon, of like, teams that are spending the most money.
Yeah, and I mean,
which could be dangerous, because I know a lot of people are are worried about that, locking people in. But I think it doesn't hurt you.
It depends what you do, because again,
exactly.
My argument completely changes if it's Matt Chapman, but this guy's 25 years old.
Yeah,
so he's got tons of time left, right? And I think that the promise of him is so great. It's just so phenomenal. So he is a different level for me, and I also do believe that's why, because we're in conversations for him, and Aaron Nola just got paid $172 million. So this guy's gonna get paid probably even more than that, maybe $200 million, a little bit more than that. And because we're in the conversation for him, that also makes us in the conversation for Shohei Otani as well.
Yeah. It could be the best offseason you've ever seen in Blue Jays history, or it could just be a standard offseason that we've seen in the last decade.
I think based on everything that's coming out right now, I don't think that they're going to be able to miss.
No.
Because it's, if for instance, the Jays do go into this thing after everything that we've heard, and they really don't get much of anything,
wow.
everybody's going to be looking at Ross Atkins and saying, that's the final straw.
Yeah.
You did this to us.
Especially with all the talk.
Yeah.
All the talk. It's not even necessarily him. He's just saying, we're going to go make moves. And then everyone else in the industry is also echoing that.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you go out and you don't make, you got to get a top guy. In my opinion, if you don't get, and maybe this sounds kind of entitled, but if you don't get a Bellinger or a Ohtani or a Yamamoto or a Snell, one of the top impact players, it's kind of a meh offseason.
Well, of course it is, dude. And you don't need to feel like it's entitled or not. We've watched this team go to the playoffs a few times now, haven't won a single fucking game.
Yeah.
We've been sold a bill of goods. They still have the Toronto Blue Jays in the top 10 power rankings.
Yeah.
That's insanity ridiculous to me. We haven't even done anything yet.
We need to ante up.
Literally.
Clearly what we were doing, and I loved all the moves going up to this point. I love that maybe Varsho is probably the one, red flag, ugly bit that we can all forget about. But every move I loved. It's just we need to go even more. Springer was that big move to kind of start it all. Springer was a top 3 free agent when we signed him. We were like, holy crap, we're in this thing. We need to make another top 3 free agent move.
I completely agree. Folks, let us know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below. If you haven't already liked the stream, please do so, guys. We're very close to 69 likes, and subscribe to the channel as well. We've got tons more content on the way. We're going to be covering everything that comes out Toronto Blue Jays, just in general, guys. So when they do sign somebody, you can expect us to be live right away, folks, with a reaction video, just breaking everything down.
Yeah, guys. And again, $3 a month to become Patron. Shout out to all of our patrons, all of our YouTube members. You guys are absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you so much for watching.
And go Jays, go!